Heart of Inmost Light got nerfed. In case you weren't aware, when Lightfall came out, Bungie put in the patch notes, out of surprise, that the Heart of Inmost Light had a change. What they did was reduce the duration of the empowered ability buffs, and reduced the class ability regeneration while empowered. Basically, like a lot of exotics and anything that becomes OP, they just get nerfed to the ground. Which is a real shame because pre-Lightfall, Heart was probably the only decent build on a Titan, which would always be the go-to. Weird how they don't nerf Starfire though. Anyway, this is a Titan build, and I've got two variants for this build today. The first one is trying to revive the Heart of Inmost Light nerf using exactly Heart of Inmost Light, but also using a bunch of mods and other things which should make up for its nerf slightly, which still makes this worth using in master content whilst 20 underpowered. But it ain't gonna be as powerful as it once was with the ability spam and damage, so just be aware of that. But the second variant we're using is pretty much the same thing, except we'll be swapping out a few aspects, fragments and mods, which I'll go through shortly in the video. But the first setup is ideal for master and grandmaster content, which is my main build that I always use as our main Titan. And the second setup is ideal for more ability spam and faster ad clearing in general, in more towards the lower end content, things like the new seasonal activity or standard strike. There was a third setup, but I'm not going to show that one today because it was using the Synthoceps and the glaives to pull off some crazy DPS, but that actually got nerfed. So we've just got these two setups now, and with those, you're going to get faster abilities, increased DPS, overshields, devour for instant max health on kills, and we're going to get volatile rounds from multiple sources, which means everything is just going to explode. And overall, this is probably the best build for the Titan to use in in-game content, whether you're playing solo or as a team. So guys, if you like this one, then be sure to leave a rating, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and now let's get straight into it. Now just quickly, if this ain't the build you're looking for, then I do have a full collection of other amazing builds which you can find in the playlist link down below for this season, for Season of Defiance. So check it out when you get the time because you might just find your new best build. But with this one today, you're going to be using the build two different ways depending on which one you prefer. But for variant 1, we're going to be playing at a much slower pace, but we'll be playing a lot safer as well. So it's ideal for, as I mentioned earlier, for the real endgame content like Master Raids and GMs. And I think I also mentioned that this is my main build that I use on a daily basis out of all my builds. Before Lightfall, I used to have this as a triple 100 ability build, but now I can't have that, and on top of that, Heart of Inmost Light had a nerf. We'll be making up for those lost stats using the new 2.0 Buildcrafting system and the mods it has to offer. Now variant 2, this is a build that a lot of people have been using, but I really don't like it that much because, don't get me wrong, it's good in easier content, but you take this into a master activity like this lost sector here, you're just gonna die a lot. But for this variant of the build, you'll be using your melee to get overshields, and then using that overshield you'll create orbs and deal increased DPS with that melee. And the way this build is set up, your abilities are just going to recharge stupidly quick in most cases, which is great for ad clearing because you'll have volatile rounds, devour, you'll get grenade energy on every kill, as well as max health, and then just shooting enemies will heal you. And yeah, there's just so much going on with it, it's great, but it's inconsistent in high level content. So I'd stick with the first variant, which is going to be our primary focus of this video, but both dim links are down below anyway. So the way you'll use variant 1 is you'll first run in and either get a grenade kill or a weapon multi-kill to spawn an orb of power. Picking up the orb will give you devour, armor charge stacks and volatile rounds. You then go around killing everything, getting faster grenades and instant max health from kills. Use your abilities like grenades, melee and your barricade to get overshields. Make enemies volatile, spawn more orbs and then repeat the process. You'll be empowering each ability's DPS and regen speed, and basically you're looping between everything as long as you have Az around to kill, and then using the build we have it the way it's set up, you'll get those abilities back pretty quickly while consistently having overshields and devour. Now variant 2, you'll start off doing the same thing, get that orb, but this time you'll use your melee. This will give you an overshield, and then hitting ads will make them explode for as long as that overshield is active, and you'll rapidly spawn orbs on every melee kill while that overshield is active. For the times you don't have that overshield, you'll use your grenade and barricade and just again keep chaining between those abilities. This variant is much better for lower end content because maintaining that overshield in endgame PvE just ain't gonna happen. Unless you're using weapons like the new glaive, or you have a perk that can get you an overshield on kills, but then you're putting restrictions onto your loadout, and we don't want to do that. We want to be able to freely use whatever we want for our loadout, which is what we can do with these builds. Now going back to the first variant, when you play in endgame content like this Master Lost Sector, you know God. You can't just run around like the beginning of Solo 3.0 with a Loreley restoration build and just tank everything. You have to play it smart and play it safe, or you're just gonna die and say the build is garbage when it's not. It's just that you're probably not using it the way it should be used for the activity that you're doing. Sure, a Vanguard Strike, run around like a god and spam abilities, it'll work, but a Master Lost Sector 20 under the recommended power level? No. You're not always gonna have Devour active consistently, and you're not gonna be able to spam abilities like a god. You have to play it slower and safer, and keep chaining between the abilities on a loop when you do have them available to use, but when the time is right to use them, because the main thing carrying this build are the overshields from the barricade, which we'll want to use all the time when it's available, because we may as well, since the build will get us that barricade back most of the time before the first one is even gone. So in the subclass, I'm using the Titan Sentinel with the Ward of Dawn super. You can use the banner shield if you want to, but I prefer the bubble. Then you're going to want the rally barricade on regardless. This will have a shorter cooldown, and because we're using the aspect bastion, when we cast our barricade, us and allies nearby will get an overshield that recharges slowly over time, which is amazing in in-game PvE. You'll see me using this a lot when I'm on a Titan doing things like a GM, but the second aspect is controlled demolition. Hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile, and then DPSing that volatile target will cause them to explode and give us an ally's health each time. Now this works perfectly with volatile rounds, which we're going to be getting from the artifact perk Volatile Flow when we pick up an orb, so it just means that this season we don't have to use a fragment on it. But speaking of fragments, I am using Echo of Cessation, the new one this season, where defeating volatile targets will create a void breach. Now we're always going to have volatile rounds most of the time, especially in lighter PvE content, which means we'll want Echo of Starvation, so that when we pick up an orb or void breach, we'll get Devour. Now void breaches will give us class ability energy, but Devour will give us instant max health and kills, and grenade energy. So we're basically securing those two abilities to get them back quicker by using that one fragment. But the final fragment is going to be Echo of Expulsion, so that enemies explode from our abilities. You can swap this out if you want to, but I do prefer this one. Now I am using the Heart of Inmost Light exotic. I know this got nerfed, but having that extra ability energy and damage is better than nothing at all. So we're going to use this as it will buff each ability's damage and regeneration speed. Your alternative is Armantarium for the extra grenade, or a Synthoceps for extra melee DPS, but you're best using this with the second variant of this build, which we'll get to in a moment. But moving on, we're going to be using 3 utility kickstart mods in the class armor to get nearly half of that barricade energy straight back, because we're going to be using the barricade a lot anyway, not just for the overshields, but to buff our other abilities too. So we'll need armored charge stacks, and the way we'll get those will be from orbs of power generated by multiple sources. Firstly, our Void Cypher mod in the helmet when we get multi-kills with void weapons. I recommend running a funnel web, which will cover overloads, or a Doom Scout, which will cover unstoppables. You can run anything, but you will want to run a void weapon to make this build as effective as possible. We do have firepower in the arms as a backup, so you can get orbs from grenade funnel blows, and then we also have 2 ballstring detonation mods to help get our barricade back quicker when using our grenade on enemies. And we'll use those orbs on orbs of restoration in the legs to get ability energy for our ability with the least energy, because it does make sense and works really nicely with Heart of Inmost Light. Chest armor, I'm just running damage resist mods, so I recommend you do too. Now for variant 2, you're going to be using the same build setup except a few changes. Firstly, you want the shield throw melee ability, which will give us an overshield when we kill adds with it. Then you're going to use offensive bulwark to buff your melee damage, sort of like a built-in Synthoceps, but I would only use this in easier content. You'll also want to change the first fragment to an Echo of Vigilance, which will help you out when you go critical. And then the extra fragment you want is going to be Echo of Exchange for more grenade energy on melee final blows, because the second variant is focused more around our melee as a melee build. And if you have an overshield when using that melee, it will be an empowered melee every time, which means for mods, you'll just want to replace 1 ballstring detonation in the arms with a heavy-handed mod, because this will create orbs on melee kills, and I mean literally every single melee kill. But other than that, you should be set. I do also have 2 Ashes to Assets in the helmet for extra super energy, but they're not required. Now this here is the artifact setup if you want to directly copy it, and then this is the mod screen for variant 1. Remember there will be dim links below too, but then this here is the mod screen for variant 2. Honestly guys, a really good build to use in Destiny 2 Lightfall for all types of endgame content. I'd personally stick to using the first setup though in master content, which is what I use as my main build, and by doing so you'll have a much better experience when playing on a Titan in endgame PvE. But if this ain't the build you're looking for, then as always stay tuned here on the channel, and remember to check out my new season 20 build playlist down below. But for now guys, give this one a try, and I'll catch you guys very soon for the next build.